Hello, everybody. Peter the Book Lover here, and this is a monthly wrap up, and I'm finally getting caught up. This is going to be in two videos, so this is half of what I read in August of 2025, and I got some interesting books here. So we're going to talk about half of these books, so let's get into this. Hello, everybody. I'm Peter the Book Lover. I have a YouTube channel to where I talk about books and movies, and I really have a great time doing it. Hopefully, you'll have a great time as well. I've been taking a little break, but now I'm back, so we're going to talk about all the books I read in August. Well, half the books I've read in August, and then I'm going to make another video because I kind of want to talk about these books for a few minutes, and I don't want to make a very long video, so I'm going to cut this in half. I actually got a lot done. I've read like 13 books this month, which is a lot more than I read the last couple months. So let's get into this. But before I get into the books, I actually want to thank everybody for being here. And if you can, let me know that you liked the video by liking, sharing, commenting, and all that good stuff. Okay, so let's just get into this, and we'll talk about half of the books that I read in the month of August. And let's start off with the first book that I finished, and that is a book that's written by John Steinbeck, and this came out in 1935, and this is the book called Tortilla Flat. And this is pretty much a satirical novel, but it's not funny, you know what I mean? It's kind of funny, but not really that funny. But this is a story about a group of friends. One of them is called Danny, and he inherits this two houses. And he stays in one house, and then he has a bunch of friends he lets stays in the other house. And his friends are kind of screw-ups, you know. They're people that do bad things with good intentions, and they usually screw a lot of things up. They like actually set the house on fire and a bunch of other things. And they do a lot of drinking. These people drink an excessive amount of wine, and they kind of have all these weird plots that they kind of form. And like I said, it's satirical, but it's really not funny. In real life, I would not want any of these guys as my friend, but it is kind of interesting reading about them, and it's a lot of fun. So, speaking about John Steinbeck, I gotta say that I've read about 6 books by him. I've read, my favorite is Of Mice and Men. My second favorite is East of Eden. I also really like Grapes of Wrath. I read a book called The Red Pony. That was pretty decent. I also read a book called The Pearl. That was pretty decent as well. And Travels with Charlie was another one. And I believe there's another book, but I can't think of it right now. Travels with Charlie was very interesting, and I really like that one as well. And yeah, I plan on reading more John Steinbeck, because John Steinbeck is a fantastic author. Now, when it comes to Of Mice and Men, I really love that book. That book is incredible. I really enjoyed that when I was younger, and I reread it as an adult, and it even hit me harder as an adult. And I've read East of Eden one time, and that was a really long book, but it was a really satisfying book, and it's got some really great characters in that book. I really enjoyed that a lot, man. I don't want to really get into it too much, but that was a fun book. I'm planning on reading that again. You know, I really love that. Another book that I enjoyed was Of Grapes of Wrath. And The Grapes of Wrath was a pretty interesting book, and it was an interesting movie. I also watched the movie of East of Eden, but that was nowhere near as good as the book. It's a James Dean movie, but it's nowhere near as good as the book East of Eden. So that's all I'm going to say about Tortilla Flat. I liked it. It's a good book, but John Steinbeck has a couple other books that I like more. Okay, so the next book that I want to talk about is a book that came out in 1950, and this one was written by Astrid Lindgren, and this is a children's book. This is Pippi Longstocking, and this one was a very big surprise for me. Now, I read it with the idea that I'm just going to. I wasn't thinking that I was going to like it that much. I wasn't not expecting an enjoyable story. It's just I just thought I'd give it a chance, and it turns out that Pippi Longstocking was a really fantastic character. She's very interesting. She's a lot of fun. There's this is actually a lot funnier than Tortilla Flat. This has some great comedy in it, and one of the things that surprised me about this character is how strong she is. And there's a time where she goes to the circus and she's getting involved with the show, and they were getting mad at her and they wanted to throw her out, but they weren't able to throw her out. And there's two adults trying to remove her, but she's so strong they couldn't get rid of her. There's also another part where she has these two people trying to rob her, and she foils the robbery and doesn't even think about it. She acts like she's not even aware that she's getting robbed, and she really makes these two guys regret trying to rob her. There's another part where somebody is in a fire and she saves them, and other parts where she's in school, and it was a very entertaining book. I really thought this was a really great children's book, and it is. It's fantastic. I really highly recommend it. You'd be surprised. You'd think that this is a goofy story, but it's not. Pippi Longstocking is definitely worth your time. So I finished that, and the next thing I finished was a book that didn't take a long time. This took kind of a short period of time, but this book came out in 2012. This is a more recent book. This was written by Catherine Applegate, and this is The One and Only Ivan. Now, when you look at the cover, you see a gorilla and you see an elephant, and you're expecting comedy. Now, this one definitely didn't have any comedy, but at the same time, it was really a fantastic story. This is a story about a mall with a mini zoo in it, and this gorilla is in this zoo, this mini zoo, and he's Ivan, and he's the narrator of the story, and he's our artistic gorilla, and it's great. The way that he's describing how everything is happening to him, and he goes into his past a little bit. Plus, we go into his neighbor, which is an elephant, but she's older, and then they wind up getting another elephant, and this one's like a really young elephant named Rudy, and Ruby is a really great character. I believe Stella is the other elephant's name, and she's a great character. And the way these two elephants get along is really touching. As a matter of fact, it's not a gut punch, but this book made me a little emotional at parts. It was definitely not like a funny story. It was kind of a heartwarming almost, you could say. And it does have a happy ending, and I really liked it, but at the same time, it's a little sad, but a great book, man. I highly recommend it. There's a movie that's with it. They made a movie of it, and I haven't seen it yet, but I plan on watching this movie because I really enjoyed this story. And apparently there's a sequel to this, and I wouldn't mind reading the sequel because this was a really, really good book, and it didn't disappoint. It kind of looked like an interesting book, like I would enjoy it. And though I was expecting to laugh a lot, and I really didn't laugh a lot. Okay, so the next book that I read is a classic from 1902. So this one's kind of older, and this one was written by Beatrice Potter, and this is The Tale of Peter Rabbit. And this is a story that you could finish in 10, 15 minutes, probably 10 minutes, 8 minutes really. It's a very short book. It's got some great artwork in it. It's illustrated pretty good, very, very great, and I really like the illustrations. But this is pretty much a story about Peter Rabbit, the rest of the children, the other bunnies. He's a family of like 4 bunnies, and they go do other stuff, and he actually goes into this garden and he's stealing all these vegetables to the point where he winds up getting sick. And there's a gardener, Mr. Forgot his name, but Mr. McGregor. Mr. Gregor's garden is like right next door to him, so he goes in this yard, and Mr. Gregor's chasing after him, and at the end, Peter Rabbit goes home and he feels sick, and it's a nice little short story that you could read in a very short time, and it's a classic, and it's very enjoyable, and I do recommend that a lot, especially since it's a book that you could read in such a short period of time. I'm not joking. It's like 10 minutes long, and it's a book that if you want to read out loud, it's great for it because it's nice and easy to read. So there's Peter Rabbit, the Tale of Peter Rabbit. So let's go into the next book that I read, and this is going to be a book that came out in 1977, the year of Star Wars. Every time I think of 77, I think of Star Wars. And now, because I've been watching a lot of movies, Eraserhead, if you've never seen that movie, my lord, that's a fantastic thing that came out in 1977. But yeah, this is Bridge to Terabithia, written by Catherine Paterson. And this book has, I think, 13 chapters, I think, maybe 10 chapters. But this book, if it's 13 chapters, the first 10 chapters are this like really entertaining story. It's like a story of friendship. There's this kid in school that befriends this new student, this female student. I forgot her name, but these two become really great friends, and they're kind of bullied a little bit, and they're laughed at by other kids. And when they're away from school, they kind of make this clubhouse that they have, and they call that Terabithia. And it's this like clubhouse that they make, and they have a rope to where they swing across this ravine to get to this clubhouse, and they have this great friendship. There's a puffy involved, and it's a really touching story. It's really enjoyable. But then when you get to about chapter 10, or whatever chapter it is, this actually changes into a completely different story, and it's kind of shocking and surprised when you first read the change. You know it changes right when you get to this point, because there's something that shocking happens, and then there's about 3 chapters of how the after effect of the shocking thing. And the thing about it is that considering how you felt before and how big of a deal this is, you'd think that the ending you'd feel very sad and emotional, and it would kind of be like a gut punch, but it actually feels a little cold with what you're dealing with. The subject matter is very serious, and it just seems kind of distant, you know. And the way the main character, I think his name is Jesse Peters or something like that, he really doesn't act in the way that you think he would of what happened. But getting to that point, this book was fantastic. I was really enjoying every single chapter. It was really enjoyable. And even after it got to the point of the twist, it was still a good novel. And I definitely would read it again. It kind of reminds me of $1 Million Baby, a movie by Clint Eastwood. And it's like a really enjoyable movie. Then all of a sudden it just... But that movie, man, really made me emotional when I was watching it. And it's really hard to watch that movie. If you've ever seen $1 Million Baby, that movie is something else. So that's Bridge to Terabithia. And that's a great book that I recommend. But just remember, it's going to give you kind of a gut punch. Something shocking. Okay, so the last book that I'm going to talk about, this is going to take me about halfway of where I am in the other books that I read this month, is a book that came out in 1995, and this was written by James Patterson, and this is Kiss the Girls. Now, the thing about James Patterson is that every time that I go to the library, or any time I go to, all the libraries I've been to, and a lot of the book boxes that I go to, there's a lot of James Patterson books available, especially in the library. Man, they have this whole shelf that's dedicated to his books. I mean, he's got a lot of books. So this guy writes a lot of books. And I've been meaning to read this guy's books for a long time. Now, I had 2 books by him that I was planning on reading. The other one was Along Came a Spider, and this one came after Along Came the Spider. Now, reading this book, this is a story about 2 killers, and you find I'm not spoiling anything because you find out there's 2 killers in the beginning of the book. And these 2 killers are kidnapping women, and they're working together, and they've got a den to where they have a bunch of women stored there, and they have these rules for the women there, and something happens, and I don't want to get into any spoilers of it, but there's something that happens, and I can't really give anything away, but yes, there's these 2 killers, and they have this den. But the thing about it, as you're reading this book, is the main character is Alex Cross. And my favorite part about this book is that this is in 2 different types. This is in first person, where you're Alex Cross and you're reading from Alex Cross's point of view. And then you have the rest of the stories when it's the killer's point of view and the victim's point of view. It's read in the third person. That's a really cool thing. But when you're in the Alex Cross point of view, a lot of people are mentioning that he solved a case earlier. And I wish they only mentioned the name, because they say you solved the da-da-da case, and they mention it about 4 or 5 times, and they give you the name of the case that he solved. Now, I'm wondering if when you read Along Came a Spider, when you're reading Along Came a Spider, that you're going to think you're going after a different person, and then it reveals that it's a different person. Now, I think if you read both books back to back, you're going to be you already know that's not who they're supposed to be after. They're supposed to be after the name they mention 4 times. And that kind of, I wish they didn't do that. They should have said, you solved the other case and called it something different. But they gave you the name of the person that he caught. So it probably is spoiling Along Came the Spider. But I don't know, because I haven't read that one. And there's another thing about the story that kind of bothered me, is that at the end of Silence of the Lambs, there's a scene to where she goes into the house to go after Buffalo Bill. And she doesn't have communications with her, so she doesn't call for backup first and then goes in. Well, this is the same thing, because they find that lair, but 2 guys go down there. And the way I'm not expecting to read a lot of this guy's books, because it's the way they solved this case was almost by accident. There's not a lot of brilliance in this story. It seems like they get lucky in this case, and it's all right. I mean, I do plan on reading Along Came a Spider, because it was kind of fun reading this book, but at the same time, when you're done with the book, I wasn't really satisfied. So, but yeah, that's it. That's Kiss the Girls. I do recommend Along Came the Spider first, because I'm going to read that. I'll actually talk about that some other time in the future, probably a couple months from right now. So maybe I could not remember the name. I'm not really good with names anyway, so I might forget the name. But it was kind of a funny name, so I probably will remember it because it has this kind of unique spelling to it. And I was like, ugh. But yes, I still plan on reading Along Came the Spider later. But that's about it. Now, I'm just going to tell you the first book that I'm going to talk about, and that is Black Sunday by Thomas Harris. That's a preview of what's coming in the next video, plus a bunch of other books that I've read, and it was pretty enjoyable. So that's about it. I want to say thank you for coming by. It's really great that you're giving me your time. So thank you so much for that. Come check out my other videos. I have a bunch. I haven't posted videos in a while, but, I do have a bunch of videos on my channel for you to check out. And some audiobooks for you to check out as well. I did a Star Wars audiobook, and you can check that out, and that's a lot of fun. Star Wars, that's always great. And that's about it. I am Peter the Book Lover. I want to thank you for coming by, and I hope to see you in the next video. See you next time.